operations all this time?
Yeah, exactly. I guess I'm the producer, but we can't get a hold of Q today, so I'm filling in. I'm just filling in the spot today.
Yeah, Q has gone missing on 9/11. We're very concerned. I've been calling him. His phone's off. He's definitely just asleep somewhere. I think he just went a little
We're
too hard
hoping.
in New Orleans. Yeah,
Yeah,
and he's just gonna wake up somewhere confused.
yeah.
Um,
Maybe he'll show up.
maybe. I'm not holding my breath for it. I think we'll see him tomorrow. He'll probably be back tomorrow or midstream. I mean, we can try to call him again, but I'm getting is voicemail. So sorry, everybody that's tuning in to CQ. Sorry to disappoint today. Um, yeah, so we're gonna play it by ear. Start off with a little Bitcoin news. So, guys, everything's about exactly the same since we started the show in terms of metrics. I mean, we're sitting just under half a trillion in market cap. Sats per dollar, or Moscow time, as I like to call it, is 3,900. The price of Bitcoin is 25,600. Um, and about that price, it looks like Bitcoin is experiencing what traders and analysts would call a death cross. So what that means is the 50-day moving average has crossed below the 200-day moving average, forming a death cross. So this indicates that significant declines could be in the offing if you're a trader or an analyst. That's at least how they read it. It comes at an interesting time when institutions have maybe let some steam out, let some gas off the pedal in terms of looking at Bitcoin as they've just been rejected, and the can's been kicked down the road on ETFs in the United States. I mean, that was a lot of our institutional hopes. A lot of people were hoping for that to push the price higher. So, I mean, I could see it. I don't know if the 200-day moving average, if the 50-day moving average crossing below that is the catalyst for us going lower. I've had this gut feel that we're going lower, and I mean, it's pretty arbitrary. Bitcoin often takes the path of most resistance. I don't I don't hold any of these indicators too highly above any others. I usually just go with my gut. My gut says I don't know. I think the whole economy is going to go lower for a bit. So in the short term, I wouldn't do anything different. I just keep buying and holding Bitcoin. This is absolute insanity to sell right now. I mean, if you're selling Bitcoin right now, I would love to hear. I would love to know why. Because you have to think it long term. You have to think in 4-year cycle terms. Um, Traditionally, people economically plan around the halving. So around the halving, I think it'll get priced in a little sooner just because education, as far as like Bitcoin education has done, we've put in a lot of work over the last cycle. I mean, 2020, 2021 was insane levels of coverage on Bitcoin, insane amounts of new resources, and really amazing people stepping up to the plate and informing, working to inform the world. I mean, the whole world, everywhere, about how Bitcoin works. One-on-one workshops, kind of classes. You have entire nation states adding classes. Um, Virtual kind of government ID programs implementing like courses on Bitcoin. We've gone so far that I think people will start to recognize this pattern. Um, as I always say, it's not a way to predict the future, but just how I think of it in 4-year terms. I think if you're not willing to hold Bitcoin for at least 4 years, don't bother. And the reason I always say that is because, you're probably not just going to buy and hold it for 4 years. You're going to look at it, learn a bit about it, get curious, wondering what the hell's happening to this insanely volatile asset. And as you learn about it, hopefully your conviction grows and you decide to hang on a bit longer, and definitely self custody. I mean, you should be, I don't know. I had a pretty quick pace for self custodying myself. It was like a few months after I bought my first Bitcoin, just because I don't know, for whatever reason, I was insanely interested in it off the bat. I didn't really have much else going on. I think probably the first 6 months is, I mean, it's different for everybody, but I think you can make time to learn within the first 6 months. And it's just important to remember that if you don't self custody that Bitcoin, you don't own it. It's not yours. Um, Sorry, Tino, kind of went on a tangent there. Let's bring it back to you. How was your weekend? How's life in general?
Oh, my weekend was great, man. I got out on the river, hung out with some friends. So, yeah, it was nice. How about yours?
Oh, wait. First of all, what'd you do on the river? Did you
I'm
go?
whitewater kayaking, so it was nice to get out there and
Nice,
get in a flow state, and
nice.
go fast. Um, yeah, so just searching for that and hanging out with friends. But
I've
yeah,
never done it. I gotta
oh,
try it.
it's so fun. If you're near good rivers, it's awesome. If you have to travel a long way, it's like anything. It's if you have to make a huge effort to get into it, it's hard to stick with it because the first part of learning that sport requires so much effort and
Hmm.
once you get your roll, you can kind of go run rivers and run rapids. But until then, it's sort of a painful learning process, So you got
What's
to be.
your role? What does that mean?
So in a kayak, it's basically a boat, and you're sealed into it with a
Hmm.
neoprene skirt covering the hole that you get in, and
Hmm.
so you can flip upside down and then
Literally roll.
and then right yourself, and
Hmm.
that'll happen in big rapids. The rapid will flip you, and you're expected to roll back up and keep paddling the rapid. So
Yeah. How do you not
learn
just bang your head on the rocks every time you do that?
there's defensive positions. You can
So
take
you're
when
like
you're
this.
you're tucked forward and you're letting like your back and your life jacket take a hit. But ideally, you're making a plan before you run a rapid, so you're not
You're not caught in
just
shallow water.
exactly paddling into something and flipping where you don't want to be flipping. But
Interesting. You gotta take me some time. I'll come up or I'll come down and meet you when you go back to
definitely,
your homestead and try it out, man. Because we
absolutely,
don't really have any rivers that well, if we get a lot of rain like in monsoon season here, we get all these kind of swells and like gullies filling up off the mountains and
yep.
the arroyos like they absolutely flood and you just get swimming holes everywhere. So we just go kind of
Oh, that sounds
trespass on a
sweet.
bunch of empty lots and go swimming there. Actually, I had a few crazy things happen this weekend. One of them being I had such a clear day that from well, actually, I better not. This will kind of dox me, so I'm not going to share this story, but it's very funny. I'll tell you off air. Okay, the other thing that happened was I got super sick, and this was terrible, and this is
Yeah.
why Bitcoin's going to crash. uh, I yeah, I went to see some fights on Friday night with my jiu-jitsu coach at Jackson Wink. So we traveled, went to Jackson Wink MMA to go watch some fights. I used to live there, so I have a lot of friends there that were fighting.
That's a pretty famous gym, isn't it? I've heard that name before.
Yeah, yeah, you probably heard me talk about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty near and dear to my heart. It's like the winningest MMA gym in North America.
Damn.
Famous for John Jones, Holly Holm,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Karate Hottie. So I used to
Yeah.
live there, with these people, trained with all of them, love them. A lot of pros in and out there.
Oh,
Patchy
really?
Mix, he just won $1 million in the PFL. I was his body bag for a couple of his earlier Bellator fights. We would do jujitsu, and he would just absolutely piece me up.
Damn.
Great guy, though. Really
Yeah.
humble guy. But yeah, I was so happy when he won that. Anyway, so we go there, and the first thing everyone, they're seeing me again for the first time in years, and we're hanging out. And the first thing they're all asking me, like, "Are you still into Bitcoin? Are you still into Bitcoin?" Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, man. Are you? And they're like, "Yeah, I've seen your post about it since. I've got some. We're talking about it." Some of them had accidentally bought like B Cash and like all kinds of crazy stuff. So we're
Yep.
having a great time. Um, the boys won all their fights, lots of great knockouts. But okay, so I get there and I hadn't eaten like all day. I was fasting. My
Yeah.
coach was fasting, and he's telling me, hey, I know this great food truck, and I'm like, all right. I mean, that's not my usual. Like, my usual thing is like, let's just eat some meat and go.
Yeah.
So I go to this food truck, and it was awesome. I mean, it was really good. Obviously, super fiat, like burger and fries kind of thing.
Yeah.
We get to the fights themselves, and he has some kind of like nachos thing. I'm pretty hungry. I'm like, well, we already ruined the diet for the day, so might as
Yeah.
well. We're eating some of this. Of course, we grab a little Mexican food on the way home, like blah blah blah. everything's good. It was an amazing night, right? Um, travel all the way back home, wake up at 5 in the morning, and I'm just like puking my guts out. And I puked probably
Oh
over 100 times between like 5 a.m. and 5 a.m.
no!
No, past 5 a.m. the next day. I was puking until like 2 p.m. yesterday.
It could have been any of those dishes, man.
I know that's the problem,
Yeah.
dude. We couldn't pinpoint it. I was like, damn, I really want to blame you, coach, for this food truck because he got sick too. So we know it was between, we
Okay.
ordered like
Yeah.
the same places we
Something
all
like
ate
yeah.
there. So he could have been sick too. The only way to rule it out is I guess I could hit up other people that went to the fights, be like, did you get sick? Was it
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
food or like we didn't eat that much of it. I mean, we got pretty small
Yeah. Doesn't matter
plates,
much
but
at this point, eh?
dude, it was horrible. I mean, food shout out food poisoning, real deal. Like could
Super
kill you.
scary,
Like
right?
if
Yeah.
yeah, if you're an older person or a kid, dead. Like no way he's surviving that. I couldn't drink water. Like I was oh my god, dude. I would take a sip of water and just puke like 3 times. And then you're puking and you don't even have anything left. It's just like blood and bile. This is the worst thing. Like
Oof,
it was it
that's
was worse than COVID, honestly. COVID is like I felt like I was gonna die the first time I got it for like I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, and then I
yeah.
just felt kind of crummy the rest of the time. But this,
Yeah.
that feeling of like upset in your stomach, and it's just miserable.
And
You
that you
can't
think you got
sleep,
everything out, but it keeps going is scary. It's like,
dude.
oh man.
That was insane to me. How much, I guess, just like gunk is stuck in your intestines all the time. So on the one hand, I was like, well, this is probably good, like a nice reset for my whole body.
Yeah.
I lost like 10 pounds, so I was 175, 176. Got down to 165
Oh my god.
in the course of one day. So that was pretty
Quick weight cut.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see me, I don't usually drink this stuff, but I'm trying to get some sugar and electrolytes and just like
Yeah.
anything,
Little
basically any
fluid.
fluids I can get down. I'm just chugging like Gatorades and electrolytes and water all
Yep.
day, trying to get my weight back up.
Yep. My god. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what they do for you when you go to a hospital. If they put an IV in you and they give you charcoal.
Yeah. That's what I read they do. I couldn't make it to a hospital. I was like, I don't really want to pay for like an ambulance, so I'll just die, I guess. I was like, I can't
Very
drive, so
manly of you. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I'll just wait it out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, not fun at all. So I don't know.
Well, welcome back to the land of the living.
Yeah, it's nice to be back, man. I mean, it's great to see that basically nothing has happened to Bitcoin in this time. We have a couple news stories of the day.
Yeah, what we got
I
going
guess
on?
yeah, first and foremost, a fee of about 20 Bitcoin. So at the time, over $509,000 was paid for a single Bitcoin transaction.
Why?
Which is hilarious. I mean, that's the questions everyone's asking. They're also, I mean, what do you think?
It
Sounds like a huge
somebody
fuck up.
who doesn't know how to use the network completely, or is using some sort of software that I'm not using to send Bitcoin. Because you can just, well, how would you do that? How do you protect yourself from that?
Well, first of all, you input you have a return address. Or you make sure you use software that automatically picks one.
Yeah.
Without a change address, you end up okay. So the way Bitcoin works is you're always going to send that full UTXO amount. So you have to provide a change address to make sure that you're getting your change back. It's like spending a UTXO is like spending a bill. It's like spending a Bitcoin bill. Like you can't rip the 20 in half and send half. You have to hand over the whole 20 to the teller and receive your change and be ready to receive that change.
Right.
This man or woman or entity didn't get their change back. I would say like this is a really novice error, and it is, and this person has no experience with Bitcoin, but that doesn't make any sense because they have 60,000 plus transactions. Now it's really weird behavior. Yeah, exactly. That's why I was hoping Q showed up today because I was going to ask him if that's his Bitcoin wallet because Q also has been using the same Bitcoin wallet for years until recently when we told him to stop because that's retarded.
Yeah,
but
we covered that last show.
yeah. I mean, geez. So 60,000 plus transactions to and from both ways from the same wallet. I think it's an institutional hot wallet, basically. You know, this is like SBF's personal checking account or something. Um, yeah, so really poor privacy practices. A lot of liquidity,
Yeah.
but it seems like they just top off the wallet every so often, and are probably using kind of seems like bespoke software. And you know, there's some kind of bug, and they sent miners got a really nice extra subsidy. So
Crazy.
nice little
Can't even
boost for
imagine.
them. You know, it could have been a handshake deal too. I mean, there's some wild conspiracy theories out there.
Like,
I can't
like
think of a
what?
reason why that would like money laundering,
Oh yeah. Okay.
like a disgruntled employee essentially making a deal with a miner and stealing.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I can imagine stranger things have happened, right?
Yeah.
And if
Totally.
there is like a high enough amount incentive, I mean, 20 Bitcoin,
That would be
I
nice.
could, yeah, that'd be nice. I could see people doing that. I don't know whether that's true or not, but yeah, pretty insane overpayment. I mean, that brings us to our first question of the day. I wanted to cover how to set your fee rate, just so this doesn't happen to you. Um,
Yeah.
so
So how do you do that?
first, first of all, you know, most of the wallets you use are probably going to have the option to do this automatically. I don't like doing it automatically. You tend to overpay a little bit. I think, you know, when you've been using Bitcoin for years and years and cycles, it's like, okay, I know the thing works. I'm not really worried about my transaction getting kicked out of the mempool. I mean, maybe at a really high competitive fee environment, but generally what I like to do is manually enter my fee rate. And I like to connect my node and my wallet software to my own instance of the mempool. If you don't run your own node, you can just go to mempool.space, mempool dot space. And then right under, you can see the sort of blocks across the screen. Those are the Bitcoin blocks, past and future, left to right or right to left align, depending on, you know, what type of Bitcoiner you are. Just under that to the left, there's a box that says transaction fees. And you can see these are the different, basically averages. So people that are kind of in a rush at the moment are paying 22 sats per V byte. Now that's not going to be 22 sats. It's going to be 22 sats by the kind of complexity of your transaction, like how big the transaction is. So if you have a bunch of UTXOs that you're bashing together to make that transaction, you're sending a bunch of UTXOs at once. That complicates things. So you're going to have to pay more. Yeah, that's more V bytes. It's going to take up more space. It's going to be a little bit higher fee. You got medium priority right now. It's about 20 sats per virtual byte. So that's like 71 cents. You know, on the average kind of native SegWit transaction, which is about 140 V bytes. I mean, but that can change drastically depending on what kind of transaction you're sending again. And then, or you have 18 sats per byte, low priority. I always go with low priority, and I usually tick it way lower than the low priority. So if low priority is 18 sats per V byte, I usually send like maybe like 12 or 13, just so that my TX. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So sorry. Um, how long does it take for those transactions to go through?
Just depends, man. I'm not usually in a rush. I don't try to. If you're doing anything with Bitcoin, I mean, low time preference, right? I'm not really
Yep.
trying to rush it. If I have to move quickly to send or move Bitcoin, I probably fucked up, or I'm making a bad decision, or I'm buying something I don't need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the other nice thing about setting low fees. It gets you into the mode of low time preference. You get to have the fun joy of like watching how Bitcoin works. You can watch your transaction get bumped from block to block until finally
Yeah.
the fee rate comes to meet you and someone includes you in the block. I mean, it can take as much as like 2 weeks. My fee rates aren't that low. It usually takes a couple hours, if not a day or two. You know,
Yeah.
after that time, I start to think, okay, maybe replaced by fee, or maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But the thing just works. There's people have their own reasons for transacting, and maybe they are in a rush for some reason. Um, Someone commented, and this is hilarious, that transaction was due to that high fee rate transaction was due to somebody using bits as the standard instead of sats.
Wait.
This ongoing argument where it's like there's a couple of them, like let's use bits instead of sats, like let's change the
I did
nomenclature that
see
the
that.
whole community has been using for years. Like,
But is a bit a different denomination than a sat? Like, is it like 100 sats? That's what I've been seeing.
it used to be,
Okay. Okay.
and it is, but no one gives a shit about that. Like nobody
Yeah.
uses it. Any software that's more than like 4 or 5 years old usually has an option for bits, but
Interesting.
that's just further I mean, it's just stupid.
Yeah.
The argument I like is like, if you think sats are the standard, or going to be the standard, why do you need a symbol at all? I'm going to send you 1,000. Okay. Or removing the commas and just making sats Bitcoin. And then instead of 21 million Bitcoin, you have 2.1 quadrillion, I think. Also a viable option. I don't mind sats. I think bits will make, giving someone a bit of Bitcoin makes a lot more sense intuitively. And I'm happy to use that. But I don't buy that you can enforce that top down. Like if the community fundamentally doesn't agree on that, or isn't interested in putting that in their educational material and adopting it in their software, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, Beautyon can go on about this all day. That's not how language fucking works. Like you can't, there's like mandating people to use, you see the results this gets like from the government and from like really liberal groups, college universities. Like it can work, but you have to have a pretty hefty indoctrination system. It takes a lot of propaganda to force language on people. And Bitcoin's so distributed at this point. I just think I'm a descriptive linguist, so I think that language arises how it does. And if you're understanding what I'm saying on some level, like that is viable language, right? I can write it weird. I can spell it weird. We all use really weird grammar when we're texting, and really, really poor spelling and this and that, but it still conveys the message. It still works. It's still language. It's still, valid communication, just like sats are for Bitcoin. Most Bitcoiners understand what I'm saying. Now, the thing is, people's argument is this is going to prevent larger kind of adoption, because it's not as intuitive. And there are a lot of things about Bitcoin that are not intuitive. Okay, there's a lot of problems we have to address there. I would think that usability is probably a lot higher. Like making running your own Lightning node a lot easier would be a much more important kind of user experience step forward to take. But I don't know. Maybe bits should be the standard. What do you think?
I well, I enjoy receiving sats because it feels like a lot of money, even though it isn't. It's like sending 1,000 sats feels awesome. I can see why some people would think that way, because we have a penny and a nickel and a dime and a quarter, and so our brains are already set up to think that way a little bit.
Well, let me clarify. The bits now that are being proposed, at least in most cases, are just sats.
Oh,
It's
they
the
just
same
want to
thing.
replace the word.
Yeah. They just want to replace the word. They're forcing us. They're very kind of aggressively campaigning to replace the word. This is like on the other side of things. Like you have your descriptive linguists. This is called prescriptivism. So you're prescribing language top down. It's super fascist. It's super like anti Bitcoin. It's a very weird. It's a very weird road to follow. I think like the key in all of this is you have to prove that your thing will somehow make Bitcoin more prosperous. And you have to, we have to see it in action.
Yep.
So, just telling me it's better and that I have to use it and then I'm hurting Bitcoin if I don't use it, that kind of fear mongering doesn't really work. This is the same thing with like drive chains. Like that's just not how things get done.
Yep.
That's just not how things work. So rather, I would like to see a couple companies, as Teco has done, actually adopt bits and watch it. That's how it becomes a standard. You actually convince, I think, companies first to adopt it, wallets, software providers.
Yeah. You made a comment about Lightning nodes and making them easier to run, and I've seen a couple people come out and start to build apps that people can run on their phone that run a Lightning node off of them.
Like Mutiny.
Yeah. Well, Mutiny
Yeah.
is the in-app, I mean the in-browser wallet. So that's
Progressive
not really
web app.
phone. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But is that a tech that's going to make things way easier for people to run their own node, or what do you see happening there?
I'm not the best person to ask. I don't run a Lightning node. I don't really care to run a Lightning node. I don't see why I need one. I'm not spending Bitcoin that way. I know it's important to use Bitcoin, and when I need to use it, I can still use it via custodial Lightning.
Yeah.
That's not the answer.
Node, but it was a
pain in the butt.
Yeah, I've done it in the past. I don't now.
Yeah.
There's so many great apps that I can just use as a hot wallet. I don't need to do that myself. It doesn't seem like.
I don't either. And I don't believe that most of the world will. No. I mean, I think you're kidding yourself if you think that they will.
Yeah.
I think what I'd like to see is a better competitor to Lightning. Because right now, it's basically one of our only hopes for adoption. Like it's the only, and it's not even standardized. It's not even, it's not as robust as it could be. There are issues, which is fine.
Up and coming competitors that you've got your eye on that are building something different, something that could be more scalable, easier to use?
Well, some people would say drive chains. Some people would say ARC. I think all of these things need more time to mature and to build consensus and to prove themselves. I think that's the best way to get something implemented in Bitcoin, is to show us how it'll make it more prosperous and to get uptime, like good operational uptime behind you and get users on board. I like Lightning. I don't mean to be a bear on Lightning. No, I'm just saying it's not good that is our only path forward, because it's not perfect. I mean, you have like the people who invented it basically telling us like, hey, this is a huge problem and a huge mess, and all the devs are wondering why they ever worked on this thing. So
is that because there's so many protocols trying to interact with each other? Like I know there's like different
there's different implementations of Lightning. No, I think I think this would be a good topic for a whole show. I'd like to prepare a bit more and come back to this.
Yeah, fair enough.
There are just vulnerabilities, and there are user experience problems that just make it a bit of a headache to imagine the throughput that we were kind of promised with Lightning.
Right. What about
it's not ready for 8 billion people.
Right.
Suffice it to say.
What about the Liquid network? I've never done anything with it. I've just heard about it. But what is
that you and everyone else on the planet Earth. There's also no one's ever used it. Go to mempool.space right now.
Yeah.
Oh wait, give me 1 second. Okay, so go to mempool.space, click up in the left-hand corner.
Yeah.
And scroll down to Liquid instead of that Bitcoin symbol.
Oh, I see. Yep.
Not loading for me. Sad. Did it load for you?
Yeah.
Can you see that there's like maybe one transaction per block?
Yes.
Yeah, no one uses it.
Yeah, no one uses it. Interesting.
Nobody uses it. Nobody cares. I mean, it's been around. Blockstream, once a great company. massive markdown in the last 6 months. I mean, selling stock for like a third the valuation at the top, which is not bad. I mean, it's brave and good for companies. They should take markdowns. Valuations get insane, unrealistic in the bull market, but they need a differentiator, man. I mean, they kind of screwed themselves on like mining infrastructure. So they need to actually play out a mining thesis here, I think, to bring the company back, because Liquid's just not it. People don't care about this sidechain centralized pay. You can say it's decentralized, but I mean, there's just keys that like two people know that are in like 5 vaults somewhere, or however it works. I mean, that doesn't sound very secure to me. That's not a product I'm going to use.
Yep.
There's all kinds of companies raising money on the back of Liquid, though. It's crazy, like millions of dollars to build products and services. Yeah. So you've got like there's a company that fractionalizes and brings public offerings to Liquid. So this is like, rather than buying Tesla on Robinhood or something, you could buy it on Liquid. And the difference being, so obviously it's kind of like a peg into those. So into the equity. So it can be offered 24/7. So you're not subject to regular trading hours, and it can be fractionalized. So you can buy, I mean, sometimes you can buy less than a share anyway on these platforms, but everything listed on there would be. And the idea is that this company can make IPOs happen for much cheaper than the traditional going public on the New York Stock Exchange or something like that.
Right.
It sounds cool in practice. I would want to see it work. I mean, maybe this is the use case that people have been waiting for to make Liquid take off. I mean, it sounds kind of dope, but in the end, like for me, it's not Bitcoin. It's not a use case that I need myself. So I just, out of self-interest, I just don't really care that much. That's not as important to me. I mean, I don't want people trading basically tokenized company shitcoins. I would rather people bought and held Bitcoin.
Yeah, speaking of holding Bitcoin.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you explain what a Bitcoin wallet is and how it differs from a bank account?
Yeah, I could try. So, a bank account is basically an agreement to give the bank unsecured deposits and hope that when the time comes, they'll give you them back. But go try to withdraw your money from the bank at once. See what happens. That's not your money anymore. You can only access it during banking hours, for one, which is like a pretty small window of time. It's 2023, and you can't access your money 24/7 if you want it in cash. Sad. Yeah, you often have to pay services to access and use your own money, about going to an ATM. Think about all kinds of depending on who you bank with. There's all kinds of random fees. They often are looking into, I mean, it's a huge surveillance trade-off. That's the one for me, the kicker. You go to withdraw a bunch of money from the bank, they're going to ask you, what do you need this for? I had a bank recently, I needed to spend like more than $3,000 at once or something. And I couldn't. I was like, guys, what's going on here? They're like, oh, you just need to call us first and tell us why you need to spend that much. I'm like, oh, what do you mean I have to call you first to access my own account? And that's just the way it works. Turns out most bank accounts have a threshold for you to spend more than that.
I bumped into the same thing.
You have to get authorization.
Sometimes they want to know what you're spending it on. It's like,
they always ask what you're spending it on.
Business.
Yeah. That's what I tell them. So, I'm like, fuck you, it's for porn. I really like porn, and I'm gonna buy $5,000 worth of porn right now.
What do they say to
that? They're just like, all right. Like, I'm not gonna tell them it's for. It's usually for Bitcoin. I mean, you're usually just buying a bunch of Bitcoin, but I'll tell them something funny. I don't know, in trouble with my wife. Got to make it up to her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just I don't They don't deserve the
Of course.
truth. They don't deserve any of this. It's a massive overreach to ask questions like this. But they're surveilling your account anyways. NSA is all over that. So how does Bitcoin differ from that? Well, a Bitcoin wallet can be spun up pseudonymously, and a wallet gives you access to and the ability to, not always, but we'll just say this is a wallet you can spend from. Okay, not a watch only wallet, just for the purpose of this explanation. So you can spin it up, and you have these kind of private public key pair that you've got to manage. So you've got these public keys, which are generated. These are your addresses. They're derived from your private key. You can't solve for it backwards, so you can't yet anyway. Maybe with you talk about the quantum computing thing, but you can't. It's a one-way hash function, so you can't generate the private key from the public key. It's computationally intractable. You can't do it. So that's the beauty of SHA-256 hashing algorithms. So basically, anyone can generate as many of these things as they want, and there's not going to be a collision. You have a better odds of pulling kind of two atoms from the universe, like, that are the same, and generating the same Bitcoin wallet. It could theoretically happen, but it's just not going to. Just the odds, the numbers are too big. They're insanely big. We can spend a whole episode talking about the complexity of these numbers. But okay, so this gives you security, right? You don't have a name, an address, a social security number tied to this thing. I mean, unless you're generating it through an exchange, then you do. You've been doxxed, you've been KYC'd. But I would urge people to generate Bitcoin wallets and addresses at home. I mean, there's a lot of debate around how you do it. You can roll your own entropy. I wouldn't recommend that for a beginner. I would say learn how it works first. And that is just so you don't make a mistake. Like some people, maybe you pick 12 to 24 words that are not just not secure. There are constantly algorithms sweeping for any variation of like words from the Bible you can think of, for example, or people try to choose their own. It's like choosing their own passcode. So it's a horribly insecure way to manage anything. Without, I mean, we're talking about real entropy generation here. So anyway, this is a really high standard of security. The SHA-256 encryption is right up there with the banks. So you don't have to worry about, the only thing you have to worry about is leaking your keys and leaking your privacy. So that's what you have to manage once you generate a fresh wallet. And the nice thing is, let's say you compromise or you think you've compromised one wallet, it's free to generate another one. You can just create a new wallet, make a transaction, and send or sweep your funds to the new wallet. It's infinitely better than a bank. Now, the trade-off is there's no third party, but the benefit is there's no third party. So you have to protect this secret yourself. There's no kind of security guard at the bank or computer system run by the state that's gonna help you out here. If you lose these funds, you're on your own.
Exactly.
Well, there are insurance products coming to Bitcoin for cold storage. Cool. Anchor Watch is going to come to market. I don't think they've gotten someone to underwrite them at this point, but eventually they will, and you'll be able to insure your cold storage against certain kinds of loss, certain use case. I don't think that's something I would use just because I've been using Bitcoin for years and I've never really.
Yeah, you never worried about that.
Fucked it up.
You have your system.
I just don't like insurance. Well, I change and update my system a lot, but I just feel like insurance is just this huge bet against yourself, and I would rather spend that money just accumulating more Bitcoin. But I don't know. I'd have to think about it. It's a cool product nonetheless for people who want it.
Yeah,
right.
I bet for companies that are holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet,
yes,
they're going to want
that. 100%. But by the way, that product will not compromise your autonomy. I don't think you have to give up your keys. So in Bitcoin, to spend Bitcoin, to use Bitcoin, you have to prove you have a secret without revealing what that secret is. It's kind of an interesting way to think about it. So to spend from one of your wallets, you have to prove that you have the private key. And you have to authorize that transaction with the private key. That's really what a wallet is. It's more like a signing device if it's not a watch only wallet. So you're signing yes, send transaction, broadcast this I'd like to send 2 Bitcoin. Here you go. Pick your fee rate, customize your transaction, send it. So you're proving you have a secret, which is that private key that you have to hold securely, whether that be in a multi-sig or maybe it's just a one of one. One of one works for everybody. Nothing wrong with a good one of one. The problem is it's you've got a single point of failure, whereby if you leak that one of one, you're done. I mean, if somebody finds your seed phrase, or maybe you're keeping it in your head and you just forget or misremember, or maybe you wrote it down and lost the paper. It happens every year. Happens all the time. So you got to think, okay, what about a 2 of 2? What if I put a passphrase on this functional 2 of 2 multi-sig? Okay, now you're better off, but still you've got this single point of failure where if you lose one of those 2, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do. I mean, you can't, unless you find that private key or passphrase, you can't send a transaction. So, and you can't spend that Bitcoin. So then we get into interesting security features. And this is stuff that banks just don't do, by the way. Like, this is not something, as far as I know, you don't have really, okay, I take it back. Some entities have functional multi-sigs, but they're always dependent on third parties. It's like, you need to sign off from our CFO, our lawyer. These 2 people need to get on the phone and virtually sign a document in order for this third party to receive a transaction. That's kind of like a multi-sig in some ways. But the other multi-sig setups, and there are hundreds of them, like really limitless, is you need a quorum of X number of keys out of X number of keys to sign on that transaction. And it's not like the keys exist and just are signing all day. It's like you have to physically go and approve and check yes on this transaction. So you've got to, it's really complicated the way this looks. And this is honestly one of the problems with Bitcoin. It's like almost impossible for someone who's just sitting at home to understand what the fuck we're talking about without trying it. So yeah, multi-sig security, I don't know. Maybe Vaults will come up with some interesting solutions. But anyway, let's do the traditional quorum 2 of 3. So I've got 3 keys geographically distributed. And this is my cold storage. This is the savings that I never touch. Let's say there's an emergency. Let's say the food poisoning I got last weekend was on the verge of killing me, and I have to get an ambulance or pay some medical bills or something. So I got to get into my cold storage. Well, now I got to go get on a plane and go to 3. I mean, not everyone geographically distributes them, but that's kind of the traditionally advised method. You got to get in the car, get on a plane, whatever. Go sign with one of your keys, bring it back, sign with another. Okay, now you've got a quorum of 2 keys approving a transaction out of 3. So now the transaction is good. If you set up that multi-sig as a 2 of 3, you're good. You can send that Bitcoin. Yeah, and there you have it. I mean, I don't know if I even answered this question well. Can I explain what a Bitcoin wallet is and how it differs from a bank account?
Yeah, the big difference is that I hear you saying is that you don't have to go to somebody and ask for access to your money. You can spend it as you see fit, save it as you see fit, without worrying that somebody is going to tax it, stop your access to it.
But only if you self-custody. If you don't self-custody, then none of that's true.
Exactly.
If you keep, as so many people do, if you keep your Bitcoin on Coinbase,
might as well
you're
be
shot. Might as well be in a bank. Why even hold Bitcoin? I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
That's a trusted third party. You're fucked. It happens year after year. to the tune of billions of dollars to people. It's insane. All right, we got 14 minutes here. What's left for the day, Tino?
All right. We got one last question here, which is, we often hear the term decentralization in the context of Bitcoin. Can you elaborate on what it means and why it's considered one of Bitcoin's significant advantages?
Okay. Decentralization. There's a little bit of a difference between something that's decentralized and something that's distributed. I like to think of Bitcoin as being distributed. It's a distributed network of nodes coming to consensus roughly every 10 minutes or every block. The difference is just the disenfranchisability of the network. So a small group of people, a centralized few, can't collude to fuck you over overnight and change the rules so that your Bitcoin is now worth less or valueless. The banks can't. This happens. I think most people have probably experienced this. If you've been banking for a couple decades, there's definitely a point where you went to spend money and the bank was like, no, we've got an issue. I had a friend I was camping with the other week, and he had some kind of parking ticket or something that he had gotten just before he moved out of a state for whatever reason. Didn't get the memo, of course, like moved, so didn't get the mail, didn't understand what was happening. Didn't switch his banking from his home state, and somehow that turned into a warrant, and that turned into his bank account being shut off. And he had to like sleep
for a parking ticket.
Dude, he had to like sleep in his car because he couldn't use his fucking bank account for like 3 days. Insane. That is communist China level censorship. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and if you live outside the US, you probably have experienced this quite a bit more. I mean,
we've got one of the best case scenarios, but one of the worst for surveillance. Really contemporary communist China. But dude, I mean, people have not woken up to this reality that there's an alternative here. You do not have to put all your trust in this centralized, monolithic surveillance state, who can, at the flip of the switch, turn your life off. No liquidity, no money means you're not going anywhere. It means you can't get gas.
Yep.
But guess what? Your cars all have kill switches in them. Like, I mean, it's just, the CBDC is not a far cry from where we already are.
No, and
right?
It's moving that direction pretty quickly.
It only furthers. Like, that power doesn't rescind. This is the perfect thing to talk about on, September 11th. Huge power grab. First of all, much respect to everyone who lost their lives and helped out on the days and weeks and months after that. There's a lot of bravery, a lot of people that really stepped up to the plate there. But there's a lot of unanswered questions, and one thing's for sure: there was a massive attempt at a power grab, and we entered an basically endless 20-year regime change wars. That left countries worse than we found them and killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It seems I really don't trust the government at all. And that's why I prefer a distributed system, because when you have this monolithic centralized institution, it's like your entire life is at the whim of the largesse of this kind of fiat monster that infiltrates everything. And that's one of the problems. That's like, once these little institutions are sprung up and these whole kind of mechanisms and jobs start to be created and whole departments created, it's like a Kafkaesque nightmare, where it's like you can't get accountability from everyone, but everything becomes dependent on this endless cycle. And it's all, to put it pretty generally, this is a super complicated, endless, nightmarish problem, but they bankroll it by debasing your money. That's the other problem with this centralized institution. So they collude to debase you. as well as tax you, by the way. So you're working 4 months out of the year at least to pay that, 30% taxes. By the way, you're getting debased another 10% per year through inflation or through monetary debasement. In Bitcoin, that's not so. There's a distributed system that has agreed upon a transparent monetary policy that's not going to change overnight underneath you. So you can rest easy knowing that, the block reward right now is what it is, and it's not going to change overnight. We've got 200 days until the halving, and then we know, okay, the monetary system has, this next change has been implemented. It was prescribed from the beginning. It's fair. It's equitable. It's arbitrary, and it is what it is. But the point is the supply cap is scarce, so you're not going to get debased. You're not going to have money stolen for you to fund forever wars. It used to be that governments imposed taxes originally to fund wars and whatnot, but today they just debase you and they print, billions of dollars and send them to perfectly avoidable kind of wars that they don't seem to want to find a resolution to in Ukraine, for example. Well, I can tell you not 1 cent of my Bitcoin is going to fund this Ukraine or Russia. You get to choose. That's the difference. I make my choice. Maybe you do want to donate to the Ukraine. Okay, well, it's your Bitcoin. Do whatever you want with it. I don't care. But, I'm not getting debased to fund anything I don't support. I get to choose. The taxes that I pay with my Bitcoin are absolutely a choice. I mean, it's a pretty coercive system. You've really got a gun to your head there. It's more, taxation is armed robbery. But the point is, at the end of the day, really, you have a choice, and you can leave your jurisdiction with your Bitcoin intact without any physical devices if you want, at the cost of nothing. So that's a beautiful thing. Try to exit the United States with your US dollars without paying your fat exit tax. You can. Not financial advice. I'm just pointing out the differences between a decentralized sort of network and a totally captured centralized network. That's the only way to put it. US dollar, gold, these are captured assets.
So I think that's well said. I feel like knowing that drives, it's driven both you and I towards homesteading, wanting to be more off-grid, self-sufficient and all of this. And I sometimes get made fun of on social media because I'm really into homesteading and all that comes along with it and being off-grid, but people make fun of me. They're like, oh yeah, you want your life off-grid except for your money. You want it on-grid. But in a way,
what do you mean?
Just that Bitcoin is this electronic system, and you can actually see how much money is in each of the accounts. You can it's
transparent.
pseudonymous. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're like, why would you want to hold your value there when you're so into being off grid? So that's an interesting question for you.
Well, it's pseudonymous.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people try to dox my Bitcoin wallet. They get threatening messages, people publicly posting, "Oh, this is where." And it's hilarious to me because they've never been correct. I've had, I'll post when I buy Bitcoin. I'll post the amount. Sometimes it has a timestamp. I'll usually obscure it or in some way.
Yeah.
And people always think they've got it, and they don't. It's like, especially if I'm buying from a non-KYC'd exchange in amounts that have a huge anonymity set of UTXOs, it's like, good luck. Also gonna coin join after that. It's like, good fucking luck.
Yep.
I'm also not reusing addresses. So it's like, okay, you found one address.
Yeah. And it's
not going to be spent from in the next decade.
Pulling, yeah. And for us, our generation, we are living in two worlds. If you're homesteading and being off grid, you're in your homestead, but you're also having to interact with this digital world that we're all a part of now. and you're not going to carry gold around in your pocket and have truly off-grid money, you know. And so this is like a compromise is actually holding a bearer asset that you can spend.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's as good as it gets, man. I mean, you could say, maybe you choose instead to use something like Monero, but you have no longevity in that currency.
Right.
Endless amounts.
Yeah, and a much smaller ecosystem.
And don't even come at me with some, let's use Ethereum. This is the most convoluted, complexity theater, bullshit currency imaginable. I mean, this thing is already debased and disenfranchised thousands of users.
Yeah.
Completely captured, centralized. Just it's not even the same game we're playing here. I mean, Bitcoin is truly it's not truly, it is the alternative to the centralized financial system. It's all we've got.
And you can't have your savings in a wallet and turn around and realize that they changed the rules of the network a couple of years ago, and your savings have changed,
Right. We push for soft forks when upgrades need to be made. That's not to say that hard forks have never happened and no hard forks will happen in the future.
Yeah.
I can think of a couple good reasons why we may want to hard fork, but it's going to be a well kind of publicized consensus thing. There's going to be a good reason to do it.
Yep.
The difference being the hard forks are not backwards compatible. So that's a huge issue. It's something to take extremely seriously. It's not something that you lightly implement for any reason. Basically, if Bitcoin faces an existential threat of some sort, then perhaps you start to consider hard forks, and
even in that situation, you get to choose which fork you want to use.
Yeah, you use both. Yeah, seriously, you use both, and then you dump the sell the one you don't want. Let the market decide.
Yep, exactly.
It's happened before.
Yeah.
Hey, we somehow got through this hour without Q. I know he's sitting. We got a message from him. Should we shame him on air? Q 8:46. I just woke up.
I told him to come stop by.
Yeah, he should have. How could you not come to the 9/11 episode, bro? We went deep. Yeah.
Well, it was fun.
It was fun. Do we have any more questions for the day?
That's it for today. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let me find one more stat here to read off.
Sure.
All right. So with a 10-minute block time, we're looking at an April 26th of 2024 halving. I guess in the last minute, I could say, traditionally, historically, 6 to 18 months after the halving, Bitcoin reaches the local apex or 4-year high. Not saying it'll happen again, but I'm economically planning for it. Kind of interesting, not really diversification, but risky move if you want to make plays based on that. A lot of call options extend to December of 2025 right now, which would be 6 months after that halving. So you can play some kind of easy bets on companies that hold a lot of Bitcoin. Super risky, but it's a strategy. It's worked out pretty well for me so far. It produces many multiples on those companies. And the call options are dirt cheap because the market's kind of shit right now. And they're probably going to get cheaper. So that's fun, something to think about. Maybe we can talk more about that next time. But yeah, guys, we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. And Tino, thanks for hopping in today, short notice, and picking up the mantle here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, also shout out Sean Strickland. It's sad to see Izzy get beat, but that guy fucking earned
wild,
it, man.
Huh?
Insane, bro. What? Everyone in the world was sleeping on this guy. He's a monster.
Definitely. Yeah, it's almost like his the show that he makes fooled people into thinking he wasn't as good a fighter.
Oh yeah, and the fact, dude, the funniest thing is that no takedowns were attempted.
I know, but is
He
he?
goes
I
in
don't know
there
much about
all
him.
well. He was a late replacement for
But
that fight.
is he a wrestler? Or is he a boxer? He seems like he's a boxer. But
He's a great striker and boxer, but people make fun of him. You know, it's not the traditional Thai style. It's not it's not super pretty. You know, it's not
yeah,
like Izzy. It's not like Izzy.
yeah,
You've got one of
crazy
the
style.
best strikers ever. You know,
Yeah.
literally best at movement, best at feinting, best strikers ever in the
So what
UFC.
do you think happened there?
I think Sean Strickland walked him down. I think Izzy also came in with the strategy of counter punching. He's a great counter fighter, and I think he came in counter punching like he had in the Pereira fight, which got him the knockout. So he kind of stays back against the cage, lures people's in, and is throwing counters, and that's where he clips them, hurts people bad, knocks them out. Okay, that doesn't work if Sean Strickland is also one in incredible shape somehow in that short notice. Like, is not going to stop, tremendous gas tank, is only coming forward and counter punching you. If you see, go back and watch the highlights. Sean's waiting for Izzy to initiate, or sometimes he's coaxing him into initiating before he's counter punching, and he's throwing higher volume, way higher volume, and he's connecting more. I mean, look at the stats. It's insane. And he rocked him. Of all the people to knock Izzy down, this is the first time in his MMA career in the UFC that he's been knocked down.
What did your MMA community think of this? Like,
Oh,
were they
dude,
blown away?
it's tough because I love Izzy. I mean, we all love Izzy. So it's hard to see. It's always hard to see someone you love lose. But if someone's going to do it, an underdog late replacement like Sean Strickland, just this kind of badass American, says what he wants,
Yeah. How can you not root for
hilarious.
them? Yeah,
How can you not be in? He took it to Izzy in his home.
it's insane.
Sort of. Australia, New Zealand. What's the difference?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but it was like all Izzy's camp on the card and everything like that. So it was a
No. Australia was cheering for him. They were pumped. They
for
were
sure.
pumped for him. So you can't help but be excited for the guy. I'm excited to see what he does next. I think it'll make him better in his next fight because think about the confidence boost, man. You just beat the best striker in the world at his own game without throwing a single takedown. Sean says, what did he say? He said, the camp, we've been wrestling all camp. The plan is to out wrestle him. But before the fight, he goes, yeah, but once I get hit, I go a little bit retarded. So I might just start throwing. And he did. He just started throwing, didn't shoot a single takedown, and he just beat the brakes off Izzy. Insane to see.
That was impressive for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fun weekend.
Very fun. Excited to see what's next. I don't think Izzy gets the rematch after this.
You don't
I think
think
we
so?
got to move. No, dude, I think we got to move on a little bit. I mean, he got his ass beat. Like, he almost got knocked out bad. I counted like 20 punches without throwing a single defensive. The ref should have called it then, honestly. Izzy was giving him the thumbs up as he's getting beat and just scared, didn't know where to go. I mean, it's a terrible look. No, I think you got to do some other fights. I think Izzy's got to earn his way back. It's been too shaky of a reign lately. I mean, I still love the guy, stand behind him, but he'll be back when he needs to be. He needs to go back and get better,
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see Strickland Pereira again.
Yeah. Or who was the other guys coming up? Duplessis.
Yeah. I think that's probably the natural. Yeah, that's probably the next in line there.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, absolutely hilarious. What a wild weekend for MMA.
Crazy. Yeah. Sweet.
All right.
Let's wrap it up.
That's a wrap. Yeah, let's do it. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern.
Perfect.